Hello, everybody. My name is Ella Riegel, and today we will be looking at how sacred choral music of Europe has impacted music as a whole. So, how has sacred choral music of Europe impacted music as a whole? First, let's define sacred choral music of Europe. Sacred choral music of Europe is religious vocal music used by Catholics and Protestants in ceremonies and religious services. This music consisted mostly of vocals, with instruments rarely accompanying them. The main components of this style of music we'll be focusing on are Gregorian chants, high mass, and motets. Each of these components of sacred choral music offer different and profound musical discoveries that were so impactful they're still used to this day. We can hear them in modern music everywhere. Gregorian chants are the first development found in sacred choral music of Europe we will be exploring. They were named after Pope Gregory the First. Now, he was renowned by Catholics for organizing the regular Catholic service that we see today. And so when the Gregorian chant came out of this, it was naturally named after him. Now, Gregorian chants were sung by leaders in the church or monks, never by the common church attendee. They believed that the words they were speaking were too holy for the common person to sing, and they were always sung in Latin. When these chants were notated, they used only two note values that can be compared to modern day quarter notes and eighth notes. These chants were free flowing when it came to tempo. In terms of how they were sung, there were three different ways. There's direct, antiphonal, and responsorial. We're just going to focus on the responsorial method. This method is similar to call and response method used by African Americans when they created their spirituals. Gregorian chants impacted music as a whole in the way its scales were based off of church modes. Church modes or scales had transcendent sounds that can be heard in modern music with its major and minor scale that we are now familiar with. The responsorial singing of the chants, its influence can be heard in any song with a call and response sort of technique. And here's an example of responsorial singing of the Gregorian chant. And this song is called Alma Redemptoris Mater. There you have it. Now, High Mass. High Mass is another musical development found in sacral chord music of Europe. It was a part of the Catholic service in which the choir sang the liturgy. This would be done either in the format of Gregorian chant or with a polyphonic choir method. The songs sung in High Mass consisted of the proper, which was subject to change based on what was going on at the church at that time, or the ordinary, which always stayed the same no matter what season the church was in. The significance of High Mass was the added use of polyphony. Now, polyphony is a manner of singing in which multiple melodies are being sung at the same time. In High Mass, there were usually only two such melodies. High Mass has impacted music as a whole through the development of polyphony. This is because polyphony was the foundation on which harmonies are built. From country to R&B, harmonies are everywhere in music today. And this song that I'm about to show you is by Josquin de Prez. It's called Missa le Horme Arme, and it's a great example of polyphony. There you have that. Now, motets. Motets are the final musical development found in sacred choral music of Europe, which we will be examining. Unlike High Mass, motets did not include Gregorian chant. Greg is out of here. Motets consisted of complex polyphonic methods, more than that we would find in High Mass. Um, Occasionally, all the voices would sing the same melody clearly in a homorhythmic manner. Motets were sung by choirs with musical training, not by the congregation, and would be heard at a church service or a concert. The vocal part of the tenor was usually given the bass chant, also known as the cantus firmus, which means fixed melody, but sometimes an instrument would actually play this part. And so here we see instruments coming onto the scene more. Um, Motets are also characterized by polychoral compositions. This is when two different choirs are singing together. Giovanni Gabrieli was well known for championing this method at the St. Mark's Cathedral. His polyphonic compositions were usually antiphonal, which you already explained as half the voices singing a phrase and then the other half following with another phrase. Motets impacted music as a whole through the continued development of polyphony and the incorporation of instruments in the performance. I mean, we can't imagine a world without instruments accompanying vocals and music, but before motets, this was kind of the case. It was mostly a cappella. And so in Omnis Gentis by Giovanni Gabrieli is a great example of instruments accompanying polyphonic vocals. The impact that studying this topic has had on me has been significant. I grew up in the church and have been surrounded by its music since I was born, and I've always wondered what the origins of the music I was hearing is. In learning about sacred choral music of Europe, I learned more not only about music within the church, but music as a whole. And I'm going to apply that in every piece of music I learn. When I hear harmonies, I'm going to think of the founding fathers of polyphony. From harmonies to instrumental accompaniment, so much of what we hear in music today began in sacred choral music of Europe. So, how has sacred choral music of Europe impacted music as a whole? Well, the main components of this style of music we focused on were Gregorian chants, high mass, and motets. Gregorian chants impacted music as a whole, and the way its scales are based off of church modes. High mass impacted music as a whole through the development of polyphony, and motets impacted music as a whole through the continued development of polyphony and the incorporation of instruments in performance. In all these ways, sacred choral music of Europe has impacted music as a whole. Thank you.